Wake up, Tenno. Wake up.
What's up guys, my name is BALENEVERFAILS and today's video is about how to start Warframe in 2026. Now for those who have or haven't played Warframe before, and for those who have potentially started it and maybe come off it from a pretty early stage, Warframe, to be quite frank, is a very complicated game. But once you do understand and learn the basics of the game, Warframe is a very good game and a very enjoyable game to play as well. Now, this video is to basically show you the basics of Warframe. Very get-go, I've started a brand new account, so I'm going to show you from a perspective of how you would see it as soon as you log into the game. So we are now on the section where you have to choose your Warframe. Now, this is actually very important because although yes, you can actually get all the Warframes later on down in the game, this is going to be your Warframe for a considerable amount of time. So basically each Warframe has different types of abilities. Excalibur would be your balance. This is more for players who aren't really used to power-ups, they're more into sword combat, shooters, etc. Excalibur is going to be the Warframe for you guys. If you are fairly new to Warframe and you don't really understand the concepts and what sort of goes down with Warframe, and you just want to kind of, you know, ease yourself into the game, something not too heavy straight away, something not too intensive in terms of abilities, I would say go for Excalibur. So the second Warframe is called Mag. Now Mag is a Warframe which uses basically a magnetic field, basically crowd control. So if there's a lot of enemies about, Mag is going to be the one to go with if you want to try and take out a lot of enemies in sort of one go. Its powers are very useful. Now if timed right and you are used to these sort of abilities in say other games that you may have played, Mag is probably a really good option to go with. If you think that you can handle large crowds and you feel like you'd be able to master these sort of abilities, I would say go with Mag. Going on to the final Warframe, and this is Volt. Now Volt is more of the attack type Warframe of the three. It deals high damage in terms of electric damage. This is probably the most powerful Warframe in terms of the abilities in my opinion. But your Mag, which is more good for overall damage, so a larger variety group. But then you've got Volt, who, if you're coming up against a strong enemy and it's just one of them, then Volt would probably be your best one for that. If I was to pick any Warframe from the three Warframes that I've got here, I would go with Volt. The simple reason being is that the Volt Warframe has the best abilities in terms of overall individual damage. So when you're coming up maybe against a tough opponent, or if you're potentially coming up against a few higher graded enemies, then Volt is definitely your best course of action for this one. If you are fairly new to the game, Excalibur is the way to go. Someone who's fairly basic to play with but still has very good abilities. If you can get a good sword from a good start and you level up your sword, then Excalibur is going to be really good for you. Mag is also a very good option as well. Mag is probably, out of all three of the Warframes, I would say Mag is probably the most difficult one to master in terms of its abilities. Basics, I would go for Excalibur. For non-basics and someone who likes to be a bit adventurous and go for a bit more complicated powers, go for Mag. Or for someone who's a bit in the middle where they don't want to go too basic but they don't want to go to the extreme, I would go with Volt. From the get-go, you get taught how to use the abilities. In the center, you're going to see 4 dots. Now that's going to indicate what abilities you can use by collecting energy from enemies. So as you can see in the bottom right hand corner, you can see the 4 abilities that the Warframe Tenno has. So to start off with, we've of course just got the level 1 for now, but later on we'll be able to unlock the other ones. But the more energy you gain from killing enemies, the more abilities you will be able to use during that time. The abilities are unlimited use just as long as you've got the energy. Use the abilities, it is simply RB and then A, X, Y, B for whichever ability you want to go with. Now we'll go over here where we actually pick our very first melee weapon. Now you've got the bow. It's going to be a slower weapon, but it's going to deal a lot more damage and has a lot more range. Or you can just simply go for the scanner, which is basically just a standard blade. But for this instance, I think we're just going to go with a standard blade. Now you see these on the side, which I've just destroyed there. Now it's very important that you do collect as many of these as possible. You'll see these all over the maps as you are playing the game. And what they drop is materials. It's very important that you do get them because you are going to need them later on down the line. But it's always good to collect as many materials as possible because later on down the line you are going to need them. The good thing about this game is that there is no limited inventory space. You can collect as much materials as you like. Now you'll also see stuff like this as well, which is again more materials, but it's in a different format. So you can see over there there's a cache which has materials in, which was like the ones we destroyed earlier, but then you've also got ones like this one, which is again different material. Especially at the start, it's always good to make sure that you've got a bit of an understanding of how the stealth attack works. Always get your practice in, because like I say, it's going to be very useful later on down the line when you do get to the harder missions as well. So if you can learn the stealth attack pretty early on, then you're laughing. Now it's going to ask you to pick up a secondary weapon, so you can pick the kunai, which is basically the throwing knives, or you can go for the lato, which is basically a pistol. These red orbs are actually health, so if you are running low on health, pick up those orbs, that will help you heal up. Now these are the blue orbs that I was talking about in terms of using abilities. So for example, if I shot this guy, I've now used some of my energy, which is down at the bottom right hand corner where it shows the 710. If I go over to the blue orb, the energy goes back up. Once that energy does run out, you are unable to use any abilities. Now here's an option to choose a primary weapon. You can either go for the baton or you can go for the bow. Now if you are a very accurate person, go for the bow as it's more damaging. Or of course you can go for the baton, which is basically just an assault rifle. What you'll also see as well around the map is you'll see these caches where you'll find materials, which are going to be really useful later on down the line. So if you go up to it, press X, it'll open up and it'll either give you credits or materials. Now if you do manage to collect credits, that is actually your form of currency within the game. So you have two forms of currency. One is credits, two is platinum. Platinum you have to pay real money with, and that's going to be for if you decide to ever buy a Warframe, so you don't have to worry about building it later on down the line. Credits is going to be more for your blueprint in order to be able to build the Warframe / weapons as well. So after you've done the mission, you'll actually spawn on what is your ship. Now this is basically your home base. This is where you're going to be able to customize your Warframe, change Warframes, change weapons, and also upgrade your Warframes and weapons as well. Now, if you go down to this section, this is where you've got like certain pods. Now, you won't have unlocked all these as of yet, but you will eventually unlock all these pods, which will eventually be able to allow you to upgrade your tenor in order to be able to become much more powerful. So when you start going into the more difficult missions, you will be able to overcome them with ease. Now that we've unlocked the arsenal, that is where you will be able to get an overview of your Warframes, your primary weapon, your secondary weapon, and of course, your melee weapon. You'll also get a parazon as well. Now the parazon is basically used to hack into systems, so that's fairly common. You don't need to worry too much about that. Now for this section, this is probably one of your most important sections. Now I'm not going to go into the mission to unlock it. I'm just going to simply go onto my other account to be able to show you what it is. Now moving over to my account where I can actually show you the mods, and so once you have completed that mission, you should be able to unlock this section, which is your mods. Now your mods is basically your power. From looking at this, you're probably looking at this and thinking, holy damn, this looks confusing. And from the first glance, it is. It's a very confusing concept, but it's fairly straightforward. So as you can see here, these are the mods that you can collect during the game, and each mod has a different ability to which you can apply onto your Warframe. Some of them will be used for your Warframe, some of them will be used for your assault, your secondary, your melee, your companions. There is basically mods for everything. So basically see it like an attachment on, for example, like a game of Call of Duty. So whenever you have a weapon, you would normally put attachments on it, like for example a grip, whereas for this case you wouldn't put attachments on, you would put mods on. So if we move over to the arsenal, you can see the basic concept of it. Now this top section here is your Warframe, so this is where you would apply the mods. Now you've only got a certain amount of capacity, so you do have to be wary as to what you pick for your Warframe. One of the three important ones that I have gone for, especially for the Warframes, and you'll get this fairly early on: Vitality, which is basically your health increase; Redirection, which is your shield increase; and then Steel Fiber, which is your armor increase. Armor's not really, a massive important thing, but these two I would 100% say get them on your Warframe. It's going to be so useful for you because it's basically going to increase your overall health within the game. And then the exact same applies for your assault rifle, for your secondary, and of course your melee weapon as well. Going to upgrade, you can see there the exact same process. This is your capacity. This is basically how many mods you can have in. So as you can see on the mod here, a little description about what it is that it does, but it's also got a little top right hand corner where it shows you how much it's going to cost. That is where your capacity comes in. So this costs 5 of my capacity, out of 42. So this one would normally cost 11, which has taken 11 off the capacitor. However, if you get it in one of the slots, so if you match it to the symbol in the top right hand corner compared to the symbol in the top right hand corner of the mod slot, it actually decreases it and normally splits it by half, but sometimes it gives it a little bit more depending on what type of mod it is. I would simply put that into one of the slots where it shows the green, whack that in there, and that would take it off the capacitor, and it's only taken 4 off, whereas originally it's 7. Mods come in rarities, so they come in bronze, which is fairly common to find, your silver, and then of course your gold, much more rarer to find. So you can basically do that with basically anything that you own within Warframe. You can do it with your ship, you can do it with your companion, and you can of course do it with your Warframe assault rifles, any other weapons that you have. But yeah, that is the basics of Warframe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope it does help you guys out, especially for those who are very new to the game. Like I say, Warframe is a very complicated game, so don't feel like you are the only person who can be flustered by this game. It is a very complicated game to learn and understand, but when you do learn and understand, especially those basics as well, once you understand the mods, how the weapons work, your abilities, once you've basically mastered that, the rest of the game is smooth sailing. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy the video. But other than that, peace out, take care, be sure to like, subscribe, share the video with a friend, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!